Hello Oddies, Alexis joining you here today, and we are going to make a steampunk tag. I'm going to be using the Gears cut file, which is brand new and super fun, and I'm also going to be using Steampunk Kaylee, who I have been dying to use. She is from a release last year, and we are going to be doing a fun metal finish with the cut file, and then we're going to be assembling it to our tag with our cute image. And let's get started. Alright, to begin, I've got the cut file all set. I made this out of the just standard basil cardstock, and it's just the marshmallow color. And it doesn't really matter what you start with because we are going to cover over it with paint. I've got Ranger paint in copper, gold, and silver. We're just going to mix them up and get them nice and messy. Covering each of these gears in kind of a random pattern. I want them when they're finished to look a little rusty, to look like different colors of metal. It doesn't really matter if you mix them up. Just want to make sure that we're getting good coverage on each one of these. I like to leave the paint a little chunky on this kind of technique, and I will show you why in just a moment. There we go, we've got some good coverage there, and you can heat this up with a heat gun, but I prefer just to kind of let mine air dry. And carefully set this to the side. I actually have one that I've already painted and have the colors kind of set, and I already even divided up a little bit of what I know I want to use on the tag, what will fit really nicely. So I've got these, and as you can see, you see where some of the copper was. I covered up a little bit more of the copper with the silver when I painted these. But I left it good and chunky because the next step is to sand it. Very carefully, because it is obviously still paper. We're not dealing with a really thick cardstock, just kind of a standard cardstock. But it's good to add a little bit of texture. It also peels away some of the paint, so that our next step will have some place to really sink in and bond. Got those. I like that it really kind of gets the edges good. And then also, you know, I'm not afraid to go in there and really scratch up the interior either, since we're going for a really grungy look. It doesn't matter if you've got some spots of paper showing, so we're about to cover that up. Alright, so those are good and grungy. And now I'm going to go in with a Heidi Swapp Color Shine in bronzer. Just shake. Spray these down. It looks really, really dark, but then I go over it. I like to keep some of the old sponges. I'm going to use the Distressed Ink in Tea Dye and just dab that. It helps to both soak up some of that extra spray ink, and it also gives a little bit of that kind of tarnished coloring to the edges. These are looking really neat already. And then it's just kind of about having fun and layering it on. I've got some Distress Stain and Vintage Photo. I'll put that on a couple of these. That will look a little rusty when it dries. And I've also got the Color Shine in Gold. I'm going to use a little bit of. And then again, I just kind of go over it. You can let it dry a little bit more, and that gets you a more saturated look to it. Or you can just go right over it like I did. Let me just heat this up real quick. Get that color to set in the way we like it. I'm going to add a little bit more of the Distress Stain because I want a couple of more rusty bits in here. I'm going to heat that up. Get the color to set in a little bit more before I dab anything off. Now when I go in and dab it, it just spreads the texture around, but I don't lose as much of the color. Awesome. I love these. They're shiny, they're grungy, they have like some rust texture to them. They're really going to complement my Kaylee stamp. Let me set these to the side and let them dry a little bit more. Make an attempt at cleaning up my mess. I'll get to that later. And then here I've got the tag that I've already distressed and worked on. This was super simple. It was just some tissue tape randomly applied to the background. I watered down some of the distress paint in the iced spruce and in the green bough. And I kind of smeared it around with my finger and then went over it with one of the Heidi Swap color shines in a sea foam, and that gave it this really neat teal effect. And so now I'm just going to set up some placement here. Actually, no, first I'm going to stamp on my sentiment, and I'm going to do a little layering in the background with the Steampunk Kaylee stamps. So we've got the gears from this set, which complement beautifully with the cut file, which I love. I always love some cool steampunk details. Just going to go over the tag a little bit in this. Most of these will be covered, but the ones that peek through I think will look really cool. And that's the fun part about mixed media, is just layering and layering and layering. Until sometimes you can't even see your base layers anymore at all. Maybe a couple more of these little guys. Woo. so I'll use less of that ink. Alright, so now I will go over here and add a touch of glue on the back. Still a little wet, so I'll hold that down for a second. Still a lot wet, so this isn't working great right now. Fingers are already getting messy, so you know you've done good work when you have really messy hands afterwards. I really like this glue, but I think the fact that we're dealing with very wet paint still isn't conducive. Alright, so I already kind of laid this out earlier and knew that I really wanted one of the little gears to cover up the tag, the hole for the tag for the ribbon. The baker's twine in this case. Hit that with a little bit more heat. Some good bonding. Alright, so when that dries, that will look really, really cute. You can see how I've kind of framed out the sentiment. And we've got a little tag hole at the top, which I think is fun. And now I've got my Kaylee image that I already colored up earlier. She is adorable. We'll just pop her on. Anyone that knows me knows I am a huge fan of the BG range of Copics, and I have to actually forcibly remove myself from those areas when I start to think about colors, because I like to think outside of the box, but my box tends to lean towards BG. And then anyone who is ordered from Some Odd Girl Stamps will notice the baker's twine I'm using. I always keep this because it's usually the perfect size for little card projects. It's already pre-cut. I don't have to raid my other stash for more. I'll just come around here. Make a cute little bow. Or not so cute little bow, as the case is ending up right now. All right. Let's try this again. All right. Trim. Let's see the top. And there you are. Steampunk Kaylee in all her grungy metal glory. And if you're curious about the Steampunk Kaylee and how I colored her, I've also made a video for that as well. So I'll be posting that separately. But if you're interested, you can see that too. And for now, that is Alexis signing off. Have an odd day.